Stories of rope. So, we all know that everyone should always carry some rope on themselves, because you might need it for anything. What is the most crazy or creative way you have used a segment of rope in a game? One of my players decided to use it for interrogation. He tied the rope around the prisoner, tied it to himself, and then pushed the captive off a cliff. I think he was intending to threaten the guy with him cutting the rope, but we never found out because he had forgotten to take the captive's metal armor off, and then failed his strength test. We use a 24-foot ladder to scale a wall. Tie a rope to the top, throw it over to the wall. One by one climb down the rope. The last man down either brings the ladder over with him, or you pull the ladder to the new side. Guards are none the wiser. Throw that ladder in your bag of holding and be on your way. Several years ago, we had a DM make the mistake of offering a bounty on goblins from the local warren, dead or alive. The intent was that we had incentive to take the chieftain alive, presumably after killing most of the warren. This was the day homebrew rules were written separating goblin chucks as their own exotic weapon proficiency, separate from improvised weapon proficiency, and there was a lot of arguing about whether conscious goblins grant a bonus or penalty to attack rolls versus unconscious goblins when made the component of such a device. Verdict: goblins swung with sufficient velocity to deal lethal damage to other goblins do not have modifiers to attack rolls or damage based on the state of consciousness, or if they're dead for that matter. However, conscious goblins get saving throws to take half damage when used successfully as weapons. Also, goblin chuck's proficiency also includes gnome chucks, halfling chucks, and any other weapon comprised primarily of two small-sized creatures tied together with a length of rope, and are a great way to survive a cave of rust monsters or oozes. I wasn't there for it. I was at a club meeting while the rest of my group played without me, which sucked. But my fellow party members used a bunch of rope to drag a statue to the edge of a massive set of spiral stairs, and then push the statue onto the manticore at the bottom of those stairs. Suffice to say, the GM was pissed, as that encounter was supposed to be the major event for the night. In one campaign, I played a ranger that received boots of levitation. Unfortunately, I am a notoriously bad roller, and would often critically fumble, which my DM liked to interpret as my character dropping his bow. After spending 2 turns to float to the ground, pick my bow up, then rise back up in many encounters, I decided to tie a short piece of rope to my bow, so I could easily re-equip it after one of my many terrible rolls. Not so much a use of rope, but more a misuse of rope. This is the story of how our human rogue and dwarf paladin died because of rope. So the two of them had a playful rivalry back and forth for some time, stealing each other's stuff in their sleep, and little pranks. Well, this time the rogue stole the dwarf's grappling hook, after some convincing from the rest of the party. But she left the rope. Now, the dwarf, on his own, decides to steal the rogue's grappling hook. So he does this and doesn't realize his own grappling hook is missing, and that the rogue has 2 grappling hooks, so he takes both. Later, the rogue wants to steal the rope too, so she does, but doesn't realize both grappling hooks are gone. So, with the rogue having 2 ropes and the dwarf having 2 hooks, we get to the dungeon. It's an old mansion. So, the dwarf goes to open the front door and falls through a pit trap into the basement. The rogue starts to laugh really hard. Confused, the dwarf says, "Okay, I guess I take out my grappling hook and climb out." The DM says, "Okay, you got your hook out, roll a spot check." He rolls and gets like a 17. The DM says, "You see the hook you have in your hand and the other hook in your bag, but you have no rope." The rogue laughs harder, and the DM tells her to roll a d20, nat 1. The DM says, "You laugh so hard you lose your balance and fall in the hole, landing on the dwarf. Both take a point of damage." The noise of the laughter and the fall alerted a flesh golem we weren't supposed to fight until the end of the dungeon. The two of them tried to climb out in a panic, but couldn't get the grappling hook to anchor at the top of the hole because the rest of the party was fighting skeletons. So the flesh golem ended up punting the dwarf and killing him, and swatted the rogue, causing her to bounce off the floor with a loud crack of all of her bones breaking. It was a fun time. The Canar Dangle. Our ranger, Kanar, and his wolf companion were quite resourceful. We were exploring an underground cave system and we came upon a large underground lake that we had to cross. After a few minutes of thinking, the player asked the DM a series of seemingly unrelated questions relating to weight and ropes. After getting the answers he wanted, he spilled out his master plan. He had acquired boots of spider climb for his wolf previously. He decided to cast Ant Haul on the wolf, tie a rope to his waist, and have everyone hold on to the rope. The wolf then walked up the cavern wall and onto the ceiling, making his way across the cavern while the party dangled below. Rope related, my Gunslinger always has a grappling hook with 50 feet of rope ready to go. I've so far used it from horseback to impale our unconscious gnome and drag her away from an encounter with some banshees. Hooked the ankle of a fleeing thief after I failed to slide tackle him, and hooked it to a window and used it to slide around a corner while riding my shield down a flight of stairs. All in all, it's been very useful, thanks to the rope of course. Not really per the OP, but a funny rope story nonetheless. Our characters were confronted with a well, and only one of us was carrying any rope. 50 feet of rope is heavy as hell. I tossed the rope down the well.
Okay, now what?
I climbed down.
How? You threw your rope down the well.
What?
You never said anything about tying it off first.
My party and I were fighting the Shia LaBeouf monster we found on this sub. I tried to MacGyver a bear trap and a rope onto a tree to grab him into the air. Managed to fail catastrophically and get caught in 3 bear traps at once. Damn you, rope! Through magic and persuasion, we convinced a character that a segment of rope was actually a powerful longsword. Since he got the best item from the vault, we received the bigger share of the real loot. It also created a great moment when he charged into battle with a bit of rope. I had a character who specialized in rope. He used a length of rope as a combination whip and spiked chain that dealt lethal bludgeoning damage. He could throw coils of rope as ranged weapons to entangle enemies or lasso them, swing around on it, save people from falling, climb up stuff. Rope was his tool and weapon of choice. The beauty of it was that he was a spy who dressed like a monk and wore a robe of infinite twine. Basically, anywhere he went, nobody questioned a monk in a simple hempen robe with an equally simple rope belt. Even if they had, there aren't many environments where one can't lay hands on a length of rope or something similar. He was able to assassinate many a diplomat without raising suspicion. One time, my party was on a flying boat chase between us and a fleeing party of bandits who had stolen some of our stuff while we were sleeping. We were a few hundred or so feet above the ground, and they were moving faster away from us. So, as the GM laughed and we lost all hope, I got the brilliant idea to ask how far the other boat actually was. He said around 300 feet. With 6 of us in the party, and each of us having never used our 50 feet of rope each, I excitedly tried to explain how, if we tie them together, we can reach the other boat. Everyone agreed, and our ranger took the moment of truth to make a ranged attack with the arrow connected to the rope. He rolled above a 20 after modifiers, and the GM said the rope landed perfectly. As sure as I was that this would work, he stated how the bandit simply cut the rope on the other side. I never brought up ropes again. In the starter set, we came to the hideout of the Red Brands. At a certain point, you're at this big room with 2 bridges in it. I decided, human warlock, to tie myself to the rogue halfling and let him cross the bridge. He was able to cross no problem, so I thought to myself,
well, if he can, then so can I.
The party tried to stop me, but I'm quite the stubborn warlock. I need to admit, I should have untied myself with the rogue first, because of the moment I try to cross, the bridge collapses, and I'm falling until I hit the ground, followed by a halfling. I took the damage from the fall and from the halfling falling on top of me, while the halfling only took half the damage. I still regret nothing to this day. Last night was my very first session of D&D, and I was given a length of rope that turns into stone at command. This has been very useful in setting off traps and securing enemies once they have surrendered. I'm thinking of creative ways to use this, as it is quickly turning into my favorite object. Hey guys, BMVoices here. If you liked the video, give us a big thumbs up and share it with your friends. It really helps the channel. And if you have any ideas on how we can improve our content or narration style, please leave it in the comment below. especially if you want to share a little story with us because, hey, we're always looking for new content. You never know if you might be featured on the channel. Thanks a lot, everybody.